The anime starts with Takashi, Rei, and Hisashi fighting against them on the rooftop of their school. They make their way to the astrology platform, and Hisashi saves Rei from being bitten by one of them. Then, we go back a few hours earlier, where Takashi is feeling down about his childhood crush, Rei. Saya tells him he shouldn't be upset because it will distract him from school and make him fall behind. When she realizes he's not listening, she gives up and heads to class. Takashi sees some gym teachers confronting a strange man at the school gate. The man doesn't answer, so Tashima tries to force him to leave, but the man bites him and Tashima dies from blood loss. The other teachers try to help him, but he comes back to life as one of them. He then bites Hayashi, and the other teachers panic and run away. Takashi, who saw everything, rushes to Rei's classroom to warn her. Takashi runs into his classroom, where everyone is surprised to see him. The teacher tells him he shouldn't have come. Takashi grabs Rei and tells her they need to leave, but she refuses, so he slaps her to get her attention. After hearing Takashi's story, Rei and Hisashi decide to leave the classroom. Hisashi grabs some weapons in case Takashi's story is true, and Rei says she can call her dad, who is a police officer. Takashi also says they don't need weapons because he's a black belt in karate. Rei tries calling her father, but the police line is down, which is very unusual. Then the intercom turns on, and the announcer says a violent incident has happened on campus, and all students should evacuate. The announcer is then attacked and killed by one of them. While this is happening, Kota crawls out of his classroom, and Saya tells him they're leaving the school. Saiko is praying at a small shrine in the school before standing up with her wooden sword. Shizuka wakes up from a nap and doesn't know what happened. Students across the school are shocked, and when a piece of chalk falls off the teacher's podium, they panic and run, causing a stampede. Hisashi tells Takashi they can escape through the administrator's office. On their way, they meet Wakisaka, who has turned into one of them. Rei stabs him with a makeshift spear, but he survives even though it was aimed at his heart. Hisashi tries to break his neck, but can't because of Wakisaka's unnatural strength. Wakisaka bites Hisashi, and Takashi kills him by hitting him in the head with a baseball bat. The three of them watch as the undead take over the school, and Hisashi suggests they go to the roof for safety. As they reach the rooftop, Takashi, Rei, and Hisashi look out and see the entire city in chaos. Soon after, they spot self-defense forces, SDF, helicopters flying in to assess the damage and fight the undead. Rei tries to wave to them for help, but Hisashi tells her that the helicopters aren't there for rescue, they're just there to assess the situation. In the school library, Misuzu and Toshimi are running when Toshimi is grabbed by a zombie. Despite her efforts to fight back, the zombies overpower her. She begs Misuzu to save her, but Misuzu kicks her away to save herself. Unfortunately, Misuzu doesn't see three zombies approaching from behind, and Toshimi is killed by them. Meanwhile, another teacher loses their mind and commits suicide, unable to accept that people are now eating each other. While they are trying to figure out what's happening, zombies surround Takashi, Rei, and Hisashi. They fight their way toward the observatory and manage to block the zombies from reaching them. After some time, Hisashi starts feeling ill from the bite he received from Wakisaka. He asks Takashi to push him off the ledge to prevent him from turning into one of them. Takashi agrees, but Rei becomes heartbroken and tries to stop him. After Hisashi dies, he comes back as one of the undead, and Takashi is forced to kill him to protect Rei. In a scene after the credits, Rei is devastated over Hisashi's death and says she wishes she could become one of them rather than continue living. Takashi tries to comfort her, explaining that he killed Hisashi to protect her, but Rei spitefully suggests he did it because he secretly hated Hisashi for being with her. Hurt by her words, Takashi says he will leave her and continue killing the undead alone. Rei stops him, realizing he will die by himself, and tearfully apologizes for what she said, begging him to stay with her. Takashi embraces her, thinking to himself that, on the day everything ended, he had killed his best friend and held the girl he loved for the first time in his life. Surviving students scream as they're chased by zombies in the hallway. Saya and Hirano watch them run by and begin making their own escape. A student who has been bitten by a zombie approaches one of them in a daze, only to be attacked and eaten. Hirano asks Saya where they are going, and he suggests they head to the staff room. Saya stops him and asks if he wants to die or survive. She explains that others had the same idea, showing 6 students banging on the staff room door, begging to be let in. Sadly, 2 of the undead appear and attack the students. Saya tells Hirano that she wants to live and urges him to keep moving. On the observatory platform, Takashi sits and watches Hisashi's lifeless body. Rei asks him for his phone, and although the emergency line is busy, she has a number her father gave her for emergencies. She calls the number and her father answers. He believes Takashi is calling him because the call is coming from his phone, and he tells her that the city is in chaos and they need to leave immediately before the call disconnects. With undead on the rooftop, they decide to use a water hose to make their escape. Meanwhile, in the hallways, zombies drag or eat other undead bodies. Hirano asks Saya if she has her phone, suggesting they try calling the police. Saya tells him that others have already tried and haven't heard any sirens. He then suggests calling the SDF, but she says they're probably dealing with the same situation, and with Japan's population of 130 million, not many are aligned with them. When one of them spots them, they quickly run away. In the nurse's office, Kazu watches as his friend, Okada, reanimates. He panics, grabs an IV pole, and bashes Okada's head, apologizing for it. Shizuka, now partially aware of the situation, tells herself she can't contact the police or fire department and starts gathering medical supplies. As a nurse, she quickly realizes that anyone who gets bitten cannot be saved and will reanimate after they die. Several undead break into the office, and Kazu tries to defend them but is overpowered. He tells Shizuka to run, but she's unable to because she doesn't remember his name, which surprises him. More zombies surround her, but Seiko arrives and kills them all. She introduces herself to Kazu and asks for his name. After learning his name, she asks if he knows what happens when people are bitten, and he confirms that he does. She then asks if he doesn't want his friends or family to see him as one of them. Offering to kill him to save him from that fate, he gladly accepts. 2 more zombies break in, but Seiko easily dispatches them. In the school's workshops, Saya asks Hirano if he's one of those military nerds or gun enthusiasts. Hirano finds a nail gun, and they hear the undead outside the door trying to break in. He quickly locates an extra gas container and nails, his mood shifting to a serious tone. He examines the nail gun, figuring it weighs 9 pounds, similar to an old assault rifle, and concludes that he'll need a sight to use it effectively. In a hurry, he builds a makeshift sight using wood planks, a pencil, erasers, and tape. As the undead break in, Hirano uses his makeshift gun to kill one of them, saving Saya. On the rooftops, Takashi asks Rei if she's ready with their plan. At first, he struggles to control the water hose, but he eventually gets the hang of it and uses the high-pressure water to kill the undead outside. Back at the workshop, Hirano asks Saya to collect the extra nails, but she hesitates because of her view of him. After seeing his grim smile, she immediately agrees. With more undead surrounding them, Hirano prepares to use the nail gun. Takashi, meanwhile, asks Rei if they're ready to re-enter the building. Rei asks where they're going, and Takashi explains they're heading back to their homes and plan to help survivors along the way. They both realize this is a good idea. Rei's father can defend himself, and Takashi's mother is at an elementary school. Takashi worries about the situation at his mother's school, feeling it's no laughing matter. In another hallway, Saya throws a wet rag on one of the undead. Hirano asks what she's doing, and she explains she's testing her theory that the undead react to sound, not pain, as the undead student bangs his head on nearby lockers after hearing the noise. Several undead, who overheard them, approach, and the 2 escape. Later, Shizuka asks Saiko to go to the staff room to get the faculty's car keys. When Saiko asks why she doesn't just kill the undead, Shizuka says it might be dangerous because it could lead to them being surrounded. Saiko, thinking quickly, rips part of Shizuka's skirt, saying it will help her run faster. Even though Shizuka protests, the group hears screaming and rushes to the source, with Takashi and Rei leading the way. Hirano asks Saya to throw him more nails, but one of the undead approaches her. She grabs a drill and impales its head, killing it. The remaining undead are taken care of by everyone except Shizuka. Saya says she can do anything once she puts her mind to it, but then bursts into tears. Saiko comforts her as the others watch. After the credits, the remaining 6 survivors discuss a plan to escape. They decide to take a bus and make sure their families are safe before finding somewhere secure. As they prepare, the news comes on, showing how the city has been overrun by zombies, leaving the survivors horrified. The survivors are stunned to learn that the zombie pandemic has spread across the world. While trying to escape, they encounter another group of survivors. Takashi tests a theory about how the zombies react only to sound, hoping it will help them avoid being detected. However, one of the survivors accidentally makes a noise, alerting the zombies. The group has to fight their way through a horde to reach the bus, losing several people in the process. As they prepare to leave, they spot another group of survivors approaching. Rei recognizes one of them as her teacher, Mr. Shido, and is hesitant to let him on board. After they break out of the school, Rei becomes upset when Shido tries to take charge and appoints himself as the leader. She defiantly runs off the bus, and Takashi follows her. Just as they're trying to regroup, a bus filled with zombies crashes and traps them in a tunnel, separating them from the other survivors. After fighting off a biker zombie, Takashi and Rei find the biker's motorbike and decide to head toward the city, hoping to find more survivors or a way out of the chaos. Afterward, Takashi and Rei continue moving through the city. They come across a police car, and after finding the occupants dead, Rei searches the vehicle. She takes an expandable baton, a revolver, and some bullets. Later, they begin to run out of gas and stop at a gas station. While Takashi heads to a nearby cash register to operate the pump, Rei is attacked by a deranged survivor. He holds her hostage and sexually assaults her. In a panic, Takashi quickly shoots the attacker up close. Rei breaks free, and they leave the man to die as the zombies close in on him. After refueling their bike, Takashi and Rei resume their journey. As they travel, Takashi reflects on how, in just a single day since the outbreak began, he has already been forced to kill a man. At Kansai International Airport, Rika Minami and her squad from the SAT-T Special Assault Team assist in evacuating civilians by clearing the zombies from the runway. Meanwhile, Takashi and Rei, having escaped a war zone filled with desperate survivors and zombies, discover that all bridges have been blocked by the police and military to prevent infected civilians from crossing. Realizing that staying with Shido won't lead to anything good, Saya, Kota, Seiko, and Shizuka decide to leave the bus. Kota persuades Shido to let them go, and they head toward Onbetsu Bridge, where they run into more zombies. Just when they're about to be overwhelmed, Takashi and Rei use their impressive motorcycle skills to save the day. Takashi hands the revolver to Kota, who is more familiar with long-range weapons. Needing a place to stay for the night, Shizuka suggests they go to her friend Rika's apartment, where a Humvee is parked outside. As they arrive, they find the area infested with zombies, but they fight their way into the building, preparing to spend the night while continuing to survive the growing chaos. After clearing the apartment of zombies, the group settles in. The girls refresh themselves in the bath, playfully teasing each other, while Takashi and Kota check the weapons and ammunition in the apartment. Hirano jokingly suggests peeking in on the girls, but the moment is interrupted by growing tension outside. Meanwhile, at the police blockade, the officers are under increasing pressure from both the zombies and civilians trying to escape. Among them is a group of protesters, led by a conspiracy theorist who insists that the epidemic is a biological weapon created by the US and Japanese governments. With no reinforcements coming from headquarters, the police are ordered to use deadly force to maintain order at the blockade. Back at the apartment, Takashi finds himself dealing with a drunk Shizuka who teases him and Kota in a flirtatious manner. After some tension between them, Rei, feeling jealous, begins to make advances on Takashi, but he holds her back, unsure of what to do. Just as things are escalating, a dog starts barking outside, catching the attention of the zombies and drawing them closer to the building. As Takashi and the others keep their lights low, carefully surveying the situation outside, a man desperately tries to find shelter for his daughter, Alice Marasato. Unfortunately, he is killed by paranoid survivors. Alice's screams attract the attention of the zombies, prompting Takashi to make a decision to rescue her, while Kota provides sniper support from a distance. Meanwhile, the girls, realizing they can no longer stay safely at the apartment, prepare to load up and move on. With the streets overrun by zombies, Takashi, along with Alice and a small dog, cautiously crosses the top of a fence to avoid detection. Once they're on the other side, the others arrive to help him. After reuniting, the group decides their best option is to head toward the other side of the river, hoping for a safer escape from the growing danger. Zombies manage to infiltrate Air Force One, and with Washington, D.C. in flames, the president and the chairman are both infected. The chairman, in his final moments, begs the president to launch the nation's ICBMs before other countries retaliate, but he is finished off by the zombies before he can turn. The chairman also warns that the plane has no safe landing spots, as the situation is hopeless. Meanwhile, Takashi's group reaches the other side of the river, where they find the area unusually quiet, with no civilians or zombies in sight. After changing clothes and getting familiar with new weapons, they decide to head to Saya's house first, since it's the closest. As they get closer, they begin to encounter more zombies. An unexpected wire barrier causes Ray to fall off the Humvee, and the group is forced to deal with unfamiliar weapons and their own fear as they fight off the undead. Outnumbered and under pressure, Takashi and Seiko try to lead the zombies away from the others. However, the undead continue to follow, closing in on the group. Just when it seems like they're about to be overwhelmed, they are saved by a group of firefighters, led by Saya's mother. Takashi and Seiko, realizing they're still in danger, decide to take a different route, hoping to regroup and continue their fight for survival. Takashi and Seiko manage to acquire an amphibious vehicle, which they use to evade the zombies and set up camp on a sandbank in the middle of the river. Later, they abandon their vehicle in a park fountain, using it to lure the zombies away, while Seiko takes the opportunity to attack them. However, Seiko freezes when she comes across a group of zombified children, and Takashi steps in to help her. The pair then decide to camp at a shrine, where Seiko opens up about her past. She reveals that 4 years ago, she almost killed a rapist and enjoyed it, admitting that she hasn't changed since that day and doesn't believe she deserves love. Takashi responds by apparently kissing her, and Seiko accepts it as the scene fades to black. The next morning, as zombies begin to surround them, Seiko freezes in fear, standing motionless. Takashi, in a moment of intensity, grabs her breast and tells her that he has always admired her. He encourages her to live as herself, even with her darker side, giving her the motivation she needs to fight back. Armed with a real sword, Seiko defeats the zombies. Finally, the group reaches Saya's house, and Takashi reflects on the events, admitting to himself that he accepted Seiko because in a world where survival is everything, this was a choice he had to make. After spending a day at Saya's house, the group faces a tough decision: whether to stay with Saya's family and their staff or venture out on their own. Takashi checks on the injury he caused to Rei's breasts, which adds an awkward moment to their situation. Saya is upset with her father, Suichiro, for assuming she was dead and giving up on her. Takashi, however, snaps at her, pointing out how lucky she is to have her parents alive. His outburst makes Saya calm down and reconsider her anger. At that moment, Suichiro arrives, taking charge of the situation. He executes his zombified friend in front of everyone to demonstrate the harsh reality they're facing. Frustrated with the situation, Kota argues with the group about the ineffectiveness of swords and storms off, determined to find firearms. He gets into trouble when he tries to take some guns, claiming he needs them to avoid falling back into his old weaker self. Suichiro questions what good Kota can do with the guns, but the rest of the group defends him, supporting his desire to protect himself and contribute to the group's survival. Shido is seen on the bus, preaching to his followers that they are free of the taint and are the future. The bus is on its way to the Takagi estate. Meanwhile, Saya, Kota, and Takashi are trying to reason with some unruly people in a tent at the estate. These people refuse to believe Suichiro's words, insisting that they can be cured. Eventually, Saya gives up trying to convince them. Seiko is seen sitting with Suichiro, and he gives her a rare katana as a gesture of gratitude, saying it's to repay her father for teaching him. Meanwhile, Takashi and Rei are sitting together on a bed. Takashi expresses doubts about his place in the group, and Rei reassures him, saying she wants to stay with him and would do anything for him. The two begin to kiss, but Rei's injuries cause her pain, so she pulls away. She later encounters Saiko in the hallway and asks her to talk to Takashi. As Takashi and Rei prepare to leave, Saiko decides to join them. However, Shido arrives at the estate, thinking about how his corrupt politician father made him hold back Rei to get revenge on her father. When Rei sees him, she rushes over and sticks her bayonet in his face. She ultimately decides not to kill him, and Shido and his group are banned from the Takagi estate. In a final scene, two U.S. Navy officers aboard the USS Alabama receive orders from the president to launch nuclear missiles. The explosions are seen by astronauts on a space station, who remark that Armageddon has begun. As multiple missiles launch from submarines, astronauts aboard a space station witness one of them explode in the atmosphere. Rika, who is on the phone with Shizuka, is interrupted by the EMP blast, causing her conversation to be abruptly cut off. At the Takagi estate, the electronics go dark, and Saya realizes that it was an EMP blast. She informs everyone, and the group realizes the devastating impact it has caused. The blast disables Shido's bus, which crashes into the barrier, keeping the zombies away from the estate. The zombies breach the house, and a violent fight ensues, resulting in a fire that consumes much of the Takagi estate. Suichiro decides they must fight their way to the neighboring house, instructing Takashi and the others to escape. The group retreats to the garage to fight off the undead, while Mado works on fixing the Humvee. Once the vehicle is ready, they leave the mansion, heading out into the city. As they drive through the city, Takashi tells the group that their next goal is to search for his and Rei's parents. The scene transitions to the group standing outside a shopping mall, ready for what comes next. The season ends with a somber quote from T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Men. "This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper." The first episode of Highschool of the Dead, Drifters of the Dead, begins with Takashi's fast-paced voiceover recap of previous events, mixed with various ecchi moments. It transitions to the present, where Takashi and the group have arrived at a small, isolated island, allegedly cut off from the outside world. Saya, frustrated, wonders how they ended up there. With Kota explaining that they were running from zombies and accidentally ended up on the island due to the difficulty of continuing. Saya dismisses him, and the group catches up with them. Rei suggests the island might be a good place to stay, but Saya disagrees, noting the lack of facilities or shelter. Alice spots a beach shack, which Saya reluctantly checks out, and they discover it used to be a multi-purpose store. After selecting bathing suits, the group emerges, with Kota wearing a female school swimsuit, making everyone uncomfortable, while Takashi is forced into a tight Speedo, drawing attention to his crotch. The girls then convince Takashi and Kota to go find food while they frolic on the beach, providing fan service moments. Takashi and Zeke fail to find anything, while Kota catches fish with a makeshift bayonet. The group cheers up when Kota returns triumphantly, but Takashi feels down about his lack of usefulness. While cooking the fish, Shizuka begins to feel dizzy, blaming it on hunger, but soon everyone except Takashi and possibly Saiko feels drowsy. Shizuka realizes the dry leaves they used for the fire were hydrangea, a plant that induces hallucinations. As the group hallucinates, Rei, Shizuka, and Saya try to seduce Takashi, while Kota rants about revolution. Takashi is rescued by Saiko, who helps him escape. Shizuka imagines Saya as Rika Minami, and Saya imagines Shizuka as her mother. In a bizarre sequence, Saya strips Shizuka, and they take a bath together, thinking they had sex with each other's mothers. Meanwhile, Saiko seduces Takashi, and they share an intimate moment. The next morning, the gang wakes up in awkward situations, with Saya in Shizuka's lap and various disturbing hallucinations involving Kota and other characters. After a series of strange events, Alice finds Takashi in a wet dream, mouthing the names of the girls as he fends off zombie girls trying to bite him. The group rushes to help, and one of the zombies ends up in an awkward position, leading to Takashi screaming. After the credits, Alice reveals there's a tunnel connecting the island to the outside world, and their mission is far from over. The episode ends with the text "to be continued."